Hey guys, Joe Madden here. I am joined by Jay Onrait, legendary sports anchor for SportsCenter on TSN. Jay, you're driving right now. How's the day going so far?
Great. I'm actually just heading to work, Joe. I'm heading to TSN as we speak. So I have about a 30-minute commute. So it's a perfect time to chat.
Yeah, it's a great time to chat. Like I told you before we got on here, you have been in my household every single night. How is it working those nights, Jay?
I've always worked nights. I've always enjoyed working nights. I'm a night person. So for me, the job was good. I always tell the story that my first, I wasn't even a paid gig, but my first kind of broadcast internship was at Global in Edmonton. When I was going to the University of Alberta, I did a sort of a pseudo internship at Global in Edmonton, which at the time was, of course, called ITV. And at ITV, there was the first day I got there, there was a camera operator. He was really sweet, and he said, "You only need to know one thing when you get into this business, that you'll always be working when everyone else you know is off."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay, that's kind of harsh, but also I appreciated it because he was basically preparing me for the kind of lifestyle that you would have to lead. You know, like sports happens at night and on the weekends, and it doesn't really happen 9 to 5. So you're not going to be working 9 to 5. So I appreciated that back then, but I've always been a night person, so I'm good with the nights.
Could you ever do a 9 to 5, Jay? I don't see you in a 9 to 5 role.
I suppose I could do it if I had to, but I just love the energy of the nighttime. And I love the fact that I'm doing, you know, there's so much programming, sports programming, obviously, that happens during the day now with all the debate shows and stuff. And I think that's totally cool. But that's just not really my bag. I like the live sports. I like covering the live sports, and I love doing the highlight shows. So that's what I'm more into. Hopefully I can keep doing it for a little while.
I really hope so, because like I said, you are a staple in my household. I love everything that you've got going on, Jay. Let's talk about how a boy from Boyle and Athabasca, Alberta, became this legendary sportscaster. Were you born like with the ability to talk?
Well, we're all born with the ability to talk, Joe.
Like right out of the womb. Like, did you come out talking instantly?
No, and it's funny because I never, you know, I always loved sports highlight shows growing up. I loved Sports Night with Darren Detition back on the ITV days. I loved Chris Berman's NFL Primetime. Those shows just seemed so cool to me. But because I was living in Athabasca, I think I thought that was too big a dream to achieve. And I probably, you know, I just assumed everybody wanted to do those jobs because they sounded so much fun.
Yeah.
So, you know, it took me a little while to come around to it. I did go to the University of Alberta for a couple of years and take sciences. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, and it was only after maybe a couple of years at the U of A that I realized, like, no, you got to pursue this because otherwise you'll regret it for the rest of your life if you don't at least give it a shot. So I dropped out of U of A. I felt really bad about that because I've never dropped out of anything in my life. But it was totally obviously the right decision. And I went down to Ryerson in Toronto. And once I got to Ryerson and got into the school and started to meet people, I realized, like, hey, I'm not that far behind anyone else who wants to get into this business. And I think I got a shot at it. And it gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah, it's I'm so glad you did this. You seem such a natural on camera. And I love that you bring your personality to the screen, to the stage, to the audience. Have you always had such a big personality, or were you a quieter kid growing up?
No, I had a pretty big personality, but in terms of the broadcasting, it was probably more that I wasn't a very good broadcaster, and and it just seemed like the logical thing to do, you know, to just sort of let your personality come out on screen. I've always liked broadcasters like that who show a little personality, and to me, those are the broadcasters I gravitated towards. So it wasn't like I was trying to do that. I think the thing I was trying to do is be myself. You know, like we have a lot of great broadcasters in this industry. And to me, the best ones are the ones who are the same on camera as they are off camera. You know, I never liked the broadcaster who put on that broadcaster voice and sort of, had that authoritarian delivery. To me, it was always more entertaining to watch the people who are truly themselves. So I tried to, follow that model, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, you have done a phenomenal job being yourself on camera. I know it must have been a scary thing to come out and be yourself. We do have a question. People want to know, who is your key influences in this industry? Who did you grow up idolizing in the role?
The first and foremost is not a sportscaster. It's actually David Letterman. David Letterman is sort of my lifelong hero. You always sort of like gravitate toward people who are prominent in your formative years. And when I was like in grade 7, grade 8, Letterman was doing the old NBC show, and everyone was talking about it because it was so unique. At the time it was like Johnny Carson and shows like that where the host was super polished and slick, and Dave was like the opposite of that. He was very like self-deprecating. You could tell he really wasn't that comfortable on that stage, but there was something so magical about that. And then I loved the way like he used all his stage hands and his crew people as his on-air people, and we've kind of tried to follow that same model in the shows that we do. So it was Dave Letterman, and then as far as sportscasters, it was definitely Dutchie, Rod Smith, Michael Landsberg. Definitely in the States, it was Chris Berman for sure. And then, they used to have a show on CNN called CNN Sports Tonight. And it was a great show. It was like a half-hour highlight show. And Nick Charles and Fred Hickman were the hosts of that show. And they were just super slick, smooth broadcasters. I loved them. So, yeah, those would probably be my biggest influences for sure.
Now, back in the early 2000s, Jay, didn't you have the same haircut as Dave Letterman?
Well, that was probably more flattering than it actually was. I mean, when I was in high school, I had the full-on incredible mullet going, just like it did in the late 80s, early 90s. So I was rocking the mullet. And then when I got it's actually, the hair was okay in the early 2000s. It was really like 99. I was hosting breakfast television in Winnipeg, and someone convinced me to get frosted tips.
Oh, I knew you were going there right away. Frosted tips, late 90s. That was a huge thing.
It was pretty rough. And there's definitely photo evidence of it on the internet, so you can definitely see it. When I was hosting breakfast television, our clothing sponsor was Randy River, a story you may remember from the malls. And so I basically dressed and looked like the 6th Backstreet Boy.
I am going to have to find some photos of that, Jay. I have never seen that before. Let's have some fun. Let's do some random, strange questions. Biggest guilty pleasure, Jay?
I'm like Chuck Klosterman. I don't believe in guilty pleasures. I feel like all pleasure shouldn't be guilty. But I would probably say that I grew up with hair metal. Poison was my first concert at Northlands Coliseum. So I still have a super soft spot for that genre of music. I love Poison and Motley Crue and Def Leppard and all that. So, I'm a big music guy, and I kind of love indie rock now and classic rock, but I still, once in a while, I'll throw on Def Leppard's Hysteria on the stereo.
Oh, I love it. Who's your favorite newer band?
Great question. Wow. I would say right now I love this band Kiwi Jr. They're originally from Prince Edward Island, and now they live in Toronto, and they were kind enough to put me in one of their new videos. And they're very much like Pavement, which is one of my all-time favorite bands. And I would definitely say it would be Kiwi Jr. Check them out.
Okay, you guys go check them out. Sticking on the music theme, what's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, great question. I would say probably Angel by Robbie Williams.
Okay.
Williams from Take That went solo in the late 90s, and it looked like his solo career was going to tank. And then Angels came out, and it was a massive worldwide hit. Not as big of a hit in North America, but it's just a classic piano ballad, and it's fun to sing. So I like to bust it out. If you sing it in Europe, everyone's sick of it. But if you sing it in North America, not as many people have heard it. So it's kind of a sweet one to bring out.
Have you ever sang it live on air, Jay?
No, I would never subject the viewers to that.
I am the same. I'm a terrible karaoke singer, and I always think after a couple drinks I can sing the YMCA, Apparently, there's a lot more words in YMCA to that song, so
Yeah,
never goes over well.
yeah. The Village People are underrated. They really had something going there.
Absolutely. So, Jay, what is your favorite sport to cover?
Oh, it's for sure hockey. It always will be. I mean, I grew up in northern Alberta. That's what I played as a kid, and that's what I loved. And I was lucky enough to grow up in the '80s when the Oilers, had all the best players in the world. It was so funny. I always say to people, when you're like a little kid, and it's probably the same for kids in Edmonton now with Connor and Leon.
Yeah.
You probably just think as a kid, you're like, well, I guess we'll always have the best players in the world in Edmonton, So, as a kid, I just assumed they would never leave. So those early years were so amazing and so fun when they were winning cups. So, yeah, I would still say I still love hockey. I think the game's better than ever. And I would say hockey's number one for sure.
Are you still an Oilers fan?
Yes, I still have a soft spot for the Oil. I'm supposed to be impartial, but it's funny how broadcasting has changed, because if you had asked me that question 20 years ago, I would have said something like, I'm just a fan of the game and I don't cheer for anyone. But now you're sort of allowed to tell people who you grew up cheering for. So, yes, I'm definitely an Oilers fan.
Oh, I'll try not to hold that against you, Jay. I did not know that about you. No, just joking. I'm a Calgary Flames girl. You probably didn't know that.
Oh, that's good. Well, you know what? They got a great team. They look like better than ever this year. So it's looking good for your team.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite memory growing up watching your Oilers?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I was lucky enough to go to a couple of Cup final games. Trying to think of like maybe my favorite. I was also at the game where Dave Brown beat up your boy Stu Grimson. So that was probably one of my favorite memories. Though I love the Grim Reaper. I would just like to put that out there, that I'm a huge Stu Grimson fan, and he's like such an amazing guy. But yeah, that was a pretty amazing rivalry, the Dave Brown Stu Grimson rivalry. That was fun.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, is there any hockey athlete that just annoys the heck out of you, present or past?
That's a great question. And I probably shouldn't answer it, but I don't know. For me, my thing with athletes in general, I'm just gonna like say every young athlete, every young hockey player, I feel is too media savvy now. I feel like I listen to someone like Shane Wright, who's such an amazing talent, and all his answers feel so scripted. It's like he's been media trained since he was 12 years old. He was an exceptional player in the Ontario Hockey League, and so his agent probably sent him to media training literally when he was 14. So I really love the guys who are more off the cuff and show more personality. Even someone like Phil Kessel, who became the NHL's Iron Man last night, he's not a gregarious guy, but his answers are never really scripted. He's just funny. And I prefer guys like that. So there's no one who annoys me, but in general, I'm annoyed by this bland, sort of way that they media train all the young guys, and how the answers are kind of the same. It's kind of unfortunate. And I feel like the NHL, more than almost any other of the major sports, they're guilty of that.
Yeah, and I can see why, Jay, because you've always brought your personality to it. So to see these athletes not probably able to bring their personalities because of what their agents are saying would definitely be a hard situation for you to watch. Let's talk more about you. Do you have any pets, Jay?
I do not. I had a dog growing up, but I don't have any pets, and my kids are at the age now where they're starting to mention pets, and I'm desperately trying to keep them away from pets, because I love pets, but I love other people's pets. You know how they say, like, you don't want to be the person who owns the boat. You want to know the person who owns the boat. I feel the same way about pets. I love them, but I really don't want, because I get home at 2:30 in the morning. If I'm getting home at 2:30 in the morning, the first thing I'm doing if we have a dog, I'm walking that dog, right? So,
absolutely.
In the middle of January, I prefer not to do that. So just want to make it clear, I am a pet lover. I would prefer not to have one in my house.
Okay, we know you're a pet lover. What about bugs? When you find a bug in your house, you taking it outside or are you squishing it?
No, I'm killing it. And I blame my wife for this, because she sort of, like she's just like, as soon as she sees a spider or anything in the house, I usually leave the spiders because I know they're going to eat the other bugs. So they're kind of helping me out. So I give them a break. But anything else that comes into that house is destroyed. And it's all my wife. She wants all those bugs out of there. So I blame her for that one.
Okay, last weird question. What is your latest impulse buy?
Great question. It just happened last night. I was listening. I purchased a copy, a 1980 pressing, Japanese vinyl pressing of AC/DC's Back in Black.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow, that's cool.
it wasn't that expensive, and because it wasn't that expensive, I felt justified in buying it. But when it shows up at my doorstep, I'll have some explaining to do because I think my wife feels I have too many records.
Jay, I love that you were so much fun answering all these strange, weird, random questions. I just wanted to get to know you a little bit more as a person. We know how phenomenal you are behind the camera, doing everything that you do on SportsCenter. Can you tell us what you want to be remembered for?
Well, I mean, that's such a good question too. Boy, you're firing off good ones here, Joe. I don't know. I just hope I'm remembered as someone who was able to entertain everybody a little bit over the course of my career. One of the nicest things I hear from people is, it does make me feel old, but people do say, you know, I grew up with you, and that's really sweet. And I get it more and more now than ever as I'm getting older and older. So, you know, if I'm known as someone who probably not the best sportscaster in the world, but someone who is able to entertain people, you know, then that's good with me. I think that's a pretty good legacy.
Jay, you are one of the best sportscasters in the world. I will give you that. We all love you. I want to thank you so much for joining me here on the Joe Madden Sports Show. Kill it tonight. You'll be on my TV. I'll be talking back to you like I do every single night when you're on the TV. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Joe, for having me. I really appreciate it. And all the best to you.
All the best to you too, Jay. Thank you. Have a wonderful night.
You too.
Thank you.